New to the series? This audio novel is best enjoyed from the beginning. You can find the full playlist right here or in the description.
Chapter 4. The Black Rain. Night swallowed the manor whole, its old stones dissolving into a deep, impenetrable darkness. I sat by the window, a silent prisoner, the high walls and iron gates a constant reminder of my isolation. The world beyond was just a muffled echo, and the solitude was a cold, heavy weight in my chest. My shadow wavered on the wall, a distorted reflection of my own disquiet. In my hand, the pendant from the past felt impossibly heavy. I closed my eyes, and the faces of Teo and Nakri swam into view. They were not ghosts of a forgotten past, but living wounds. The memories once sweet were now a bitter poison, and I, the naive fool, had welcomed them. The betrayal wasn't a memory, it was a scar. A single tear slid down my cheek, hot and foreign. I felt an overwhelming futility. All that trust, all that history reduced to ash. Anger and pain warred within me, but I knew I couldn't reside there. I had a second chance, a rebirth, and it had to mean something more than this. The next morning, a sliver of sun pierced the curtain, falling on my face like a hesitant caress. A strange calm settled over me, a peace I hadn't felt since I was reborn into this new, fraught rhythm of life. Downstairs, the muted sounds of my parents' work began, the scraping of metal against wood, the dull thud of boxes, the final preparations for the storm. My father's voice, low and steady, broke the silence. "Jihye, we need to talk." I met his gaze, the unspoken truth hanging between us. "What do we need to do?" He looked at me, a father's pride and a man's fear warring in his eyes. "We need to be ready. If the black rain takes us, we can't hurt each other." My mother's voice was as steady as my father's, but her hands were trembling as she folded a blanket. "We'll be in separate cells in the basement. It's the safest place. We'll lock ourselves in. If we start to change, we must be contained." A cold dread coiled in my gut, but their logic was undeniable. Okay, I'll use my ability to store the keys and supplies. We spent the day reinforcing our fortress, the heavy work a physical distraction from the terror of what was to come. My father's muscles strained as he fitted heavy metal bars over the basement windows. As the sun began to set, a sinister foreboding fell over the manor. The air grew heavy, thick with the silence before a storm. The sky, once a brilliant blue, had curdled into a sickly bruise. I stepped onto the balcony, the first cold drops of rain hitting my face. The black rain had arrived. The basement air was a suffocating blanket of dread. Minjoon, my father's friend, sat hunched in his cell, his eyes darting around the small space. "What do we do now?" he whispered, his voice cracking with fear. "We wait," my mother said, her voice a fragile anchor in the rising tide of panic. "We wait and hope."
An eternity later, the rain finally stopped, leaving behind an uncanny silence. I knew it was time. As I reached the basement floor, a faint growling sound met me. My heart seized. I summoned a shovel, its weight a cold comfort in my trembling hands, and slowly unlatched the door. The flashlight beam sliced through the absolute blackness, revealing a scene of utter chaos. Boxes lay torn open, their contents scattered. Clothes, shredded and stained, lay on the floor. "Dad? Mom?" I called out, my voice barely a whisper. "Minjoon?" A dark shape erupted from the shadows, a guttural roar ripping through the stillness. My heart hammered against my ribs as I raised the flashlight. Its beam caught a monstrous figure, a grotesque caricature of a man. It had Minjoon's silhouette, but its skin was a mottled grayish blue, a roadmap of cracks. Its eyes, once so full of nervous energy, were now ablaze with a singular bloodthirsty madness. From behind me, A choked gasp. My parents, in their separate cells, were staring in frozen horror. My mother clutched a rusty wrench, my father a metal bar. "Don't go near him," I screamed, the words torn from my throat. "He's not himself." The creature's head snapped toward my voice. It let out a chilling roar and lunged. I slammed the door shut, the thick metal groaning under the impact of its body. The frantic scratching and growling filled the silence. What do we do?" My mother's voice was a fragile whisper, on the verge of breaking. My father's face, usually so kind, was a grim mask of grease. He said, "He wouldn't want to live like this." His eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. We have to end it for him. It's the only humane thing." A wave of despair washed over me. "I'll do it," I said, my voice firm. "I've done it before." My father shook his head, pulling me into a bone-crushing hug. "No, Jihye, you shouldn't have to bear that burden. We will do this together." We stood in a silent vigil, the three of us, listening to the monster behind the door, a family bracing for the terrible task ahead. My father and mother exchanged a shared, heart-wrenching look of grim resolve. My father took the lead, his knuckles white as he gripped the metal bar. He stood before the cell door, his face a silent testament to a friendship that had spanned a lifetime, now reduced to a low animal growl. He took a deep, shaky breath. The sound of the creature's frantic scratching a torment. "Minjoon," he whispered, his voice cracking with a grief that words couldn't hold. My mother's hand found his back, a silent, steady pillar of support. I stood behind them, my fists clenched, watching my father. He wasn't just facing a monster, he was facing a memory, a lifetime of shared laughter and friendship. With a final broken sigh, he turned the key and unlatched the chains. The door swung open and the creature lunged out, its eyes locked on us with a chilling, primal hunger. My father didn't hesitate. With a primal cry of anguish that tore through the stillness, he swung the metal bar. The sound was a horrific symphony of a sickening thud and a monstrous screech. Minjoon fell, twitching, on the cold concrete. My father stood over him, the metal bar shaking in his hands, tears finally streaming down his face. My mother rushed to him, pulling him into a tight embrace as he sobbed, his grief a physical, guttural thing. I watched, my heart breaking for my father, for their loss, and for the cruel world that had become our nightmare.
We buried Minjoon in a quiet corner of the manor grounds, the shovel in my father's hands a heavy reminder of what had just been done. My mother, instead of finding comfort in tears, worked with a terrifying, detached focus in the cold blue glow of a monitor, a scientist confronting a morbid truth. The black rain virus, she discovered, was more than a weapon of destruction. It couldn't be cured, but it was a catalyst, capable of awakening dormant genetic traits and giving people powers, and she believed she could speed up the process in others. The fragility of our sanctuary was shattered the next morning by the roar of an armored truck. Out of it stepped Sojin, his eyes hardened by a new world, a testament to the losses he had endured. "Jihye," he said, his voice flat and calm. "I am back." He was not alone. His scavenged truck held a small unit of haggard, weary soldiers, their quiet alertness a violent contrast to the stillness of our home. They established a perimeter camp within the manor grounds, and the air, once so serene, now hummed with a different kind of tension. That night, their conflicting worlds collided. With the others asleep or on watch, we gathered around the dining room table. "Chaos is already here," Sejin said, his voice clipped and flat. "We adapted. This world doesn't allow for sentiment. We need to fight setting up a forward operating base. We need to go back out, save more people." The quiet dignity of Minjoon's burial now felt like a naive luxury. "No." My mother's voice was a tremor, but her hands, clutching her charts, were steady. "This isn't a war you can win with numbers. The virus may be awakening new powers, but it also creates monsters. We contain and we survive. We don't invite chaos from strangers who could turn on us." The words detonated in the quiet room, a visceral conflict of philosophy and survival. Sejun's resolute pragmatism, forged in the fire of loss, clashed against my parents' primal fear of the unknown. His focus was the collective, theirs the family. The air was thick with the weight of their convictions, a map of their conflict laid bare on the dining room table. The familiar discord echoed in my head, a jarring symphony of what had been lost. I had spent 2 years in my last life fighting alongside others, surviving a world of monsters. I knew the strength that came from a unified group, the power of numbers against hordes of the infected. But I also knew the bitter taste of betrayal, the fatal price of trusting the wrong person. I didn't mind more people. The problem was knowing how to pick the right ones. I knew I couldn't let the conflict tear them apart. A new, unfamiliar strength rose within me. I closed my eyes, and with a pull from the infinite, weightless space of my inventory, a sealed crate of canned food materialized on the table with a sharp thud. My parents' faces were a mix of pride and terror. Sejun's eyes, however, were filled with a desperate, burgeoning hope. "That's just the beginning," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "This is just a fingertip of my countless resources, enough for more than thousands of people." I gestured to the empty space around the table. We weren't protecting a secret out of a lack of resources. We were protecting a secret that could change everything. And now the choice is ours to make.
The story doesn't end here. New chapters are coming soon in the official playlist. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.